Welcome to the first round of the Candidates Tournament in the World Crazyhouse Championship, featuring none other than National Master blitzbullet and eekarf, both of Fix and Lead Chess notoriety. And this is going to be a 10-game series, so unlike the preceding knockout tournament, this could end at a tie at 5-all, and it's first of a series of many matches featuring all the candidates, the 8 remaining players in the Crazyhouse World Championship. So these are going to be the first moves played. Should be a great event and a great spectacle. Time control is going to be 3+0, so no increment. This was a hotly debated topic in the forums and in the poll. There's a poll about the time control leading up to the tournament, but 3+0, no increment was decided on. So that's what we're sticking with for now. For this year, rather. Mugwort says the players are waiting until 10 plus spectators, and we have 3 now. That's a little bit curious. This hasn't yet been publicized very widely, so hoping that'll change as the tournament progresses, or as the candidate tournament progresses, and hopefully as the ball gets rolling, more people will tune in and know about the event and get excited for it and spectate. So well, if they're waiting for 10 spectators, they may be disappointed. So for those of you watching the video on YouTube, I'll make a note in the comments or in the description of the video about when the match actually starts, so you can fast forward through my babbling and get to the action. Here we go. All right, we're off with e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. And we go for the bishop e7, bishop e2 variation of the symmetrical e4, e5 stuff. So it looks like it's going to be more positional game. Nobody breaking in the center just yet. Can be a bit of a slower, more maneuvering build-up. eekarf taking his first think on move 6. Figuring out what direction he wants to take the game in. Probably d3 is just fine. d4 is possible as well. It's interesting that he's stopping to think so early in the match. You would think that he would know, have a pretty solid plan ready to go in a very normal position like this. Black offers a draw, white declines draw. So there must be something going on with eekarf in terms of maybe connection or something going on in the background. I don't know. So nice of blitzbullet to add time to eekarf's clock and make it a little bit more even. So yeah, something must have been going on with eekarf there. Aside from the game, he wasn't actually thinking about that on move 6. Anyway, the game proceeds. Knight comes into d5. So in these types of structures, what white wants to do, he'll put a pawn on c3 probably just to shore up the d4 square. No, he's going to go c4. That's not a decision you see too often, but it's necessary to defend the pawn on e5 after that trade occurred. Knight appears on f4. Trade occurs there. You don't want that knight to live there on f4, peering into the white guts, so to speak. Knight on h5. Typical placement for a knight, looking at this square. And this knight's going to be maneuvered. Also looking at this square, the e6 square and the f5 square. So this knight is well positioned to attack the light squares. This knight is well positioned to attack the dark squares. I think black is better covered on the dark squares because look at all these dark square diagonal pieces. Thus he's taking one defender of the dark squares and putting it to attack the light squares and drive that knight away. So trade occurs, a pawn appears on e6. Trying to make progress against f7, tender point in black's camp. So even material, white's a little bit safer. White's going on the attack. Blitzbullet going down on the clock. eekarf up a minute on the clock, approximately. So it takes with the knight. There's a fork on the queen and the rook. Blitzbullet decides to get rid of its bad bishop for that very strong knight. So now maybe you want to attack this pawn, so maybe a knight move. A knight at g5 could happen, so a knight at d4 happens instead, attacking this pawn. Bishop comes onto this diagonal, menacing the black king indirectly, and also menacing a pawn drop on f7. So the knight gets rid of that bishop, knight reappears on d4, queen comes into g4. The queen is often very well positioned on g4, supposing it can't be kicked away by, well, it can be kicked away in this position, but if it couldn't, it's well positioned because it guards a lot of really important squares on the white king side from knight drops and pawn drops, and also lines up against black's king. So nice square for the queen. Blitzbullet makes a bishop battery. He's looking at h2, see if he wants to take that or not. White's threatening a knight drop here. The downside of taking on h2 is it drives or pulls away a defender of this h6 square, which could prove to be important. Now Blitzbullet is contending that he's going to live quite safely on one of these two squares, supposing a knight drop on h6 occurs. But Blitzbullet is way down on time here. So eekarf's been playing pretty quickly up to this point, but now he's deciding what he wants to do. This is a fairly pivotal juncture. Knight drop here, I guess, doesn't do too much. Ooh, he was calculating a sacrifice here. Interesting. So what's he going to do with that extra knight? Knight does appear on h6. Is the knight going to come to f5? It is. He's going to sack that knight. So takes. This bishop is defending this diagonal, though, so white could just scoop up this bishop. I think he's safe. Over here on the king side, there's no drops that could. Now he's going to pick up the queen, which I failed to appreciate was hanging. I think this game's going to go to white. This is hanging with check. Bishop guards a pawn drop on h6. He's going to play that anyway, just to drive bishop away from this, so mate is no longer threatened and won from black. Rook guards this square, so the knight can't hop back. So he's going to cut off the rook's communication with this square, so now knight f5 is threatened. And now with another piece in hand or another knight in hand, eekarf's got to be a little bit careful about like knight drops here, say. So this bishop is a good both attacker and defender of that square. Knight comes on g4, threatening a mate in one again, but yeah, the white queen can defend that easily enough. If nothing else, eekarf will win this on the clock. He's well versed and time scrambles from his bughouse days, I'm sure. Yeah, and that's going to be mate. Okay, so eekarf takes the first game with white. That's the first of 10 games. 1-0 eekarf. Alright, we're going for an e4, e5 system. e4, d5 rather. Opening moves being played fairly rapid fire. So where does that bishop want to go? Looks like he's losing a piece here one way or another. Just want to drag the bishop back to c5 or to d6, blocking off the queen's tension, or even e7, guarding that queen, so it could be recaptured with the bishop. Either way, he's losing material here, it looks like. Comes back to d6. This pawn is exerts some nice central influence on this square, and also this square is sometimes important as well. But I don't think it's going to be enough for the piece. And it's also weak, having no defender on b7. So eekarf uses that pawn, the extra pawn he has, to place in the center. And white has a nice wall of knights in the center. Alright, knight f5, attacking the square. You don't often want to just castle and defend that with your king. It is possible here because there's no other... White doesn't have much in hand to attack the king, supposing it were drawn out to g7. But now this is a nice... Yeah, this is a nice way of proceeding from blitzbullet, developing with tempo on the d6 pawn. It's going to guard this knight first. Rook e8. Okay, so he's defending this square from a pawn drop and possible bishop drops. And also lining up against the king. That can just be taken though, right? Yeah, you just take this, and then this is hanging as well. Not sure. Okay, so he just takes a queen instead. I don't think this is going to be enough for black. Look at all these pieces that white has, which could defend his king, even if he takes here. I mean, was that a huge threat? He can just run back to the queen side and be very safe. So if I'm not dreadfully mistaken, I think this game's going to go to blitzbullet. It's just too big of a material and development advantage. Look at all these pieces he has hovering around the black king and a queen in hand. And he's already progressing on the dark squares. Yeah, black really has nothing. So it was a bit of a strange decision from eekarf there in the middle game. Alright, so you can probably just take this. If white had a knight in hand, knight at e7 would be mate. Takes, smother. But I don't see why you can't just take on g7 here. This is a threat, I guess, but it's too slow. It takes 2 tempo. And all of white's threats are going to be immediate 1 tempo threats. So you can, I think you can, no, I was going to say you can let that queen fall with check, but queen here would mate. So he's just going to cover that with a rook and remain safe. Takes, rook takes, queen drop, back on e1. Yeah, I think you're okay here as white. I think you can allow that to drop. I think this is a fine decision, and then you can just proceed with your own attack. At a3. So he's going to decline to take the queen immediately. That's always hanging. White is now calculating if he can run up with the king, or if instead he's just going to sidestep that. I think what he's calculated is he's going to be okay just taking that and running up. He does run up to a3. This knight's hanging, and yeah, to my eyes, he's perfectly safe. Because there are no knight drops. I mean, there's a knight drop on b5, but that can be taken. There are no rook drops with check. And even if you decide to try to check on b4 with the pawn, like play c5 or something, and that's not an issue anyway, because the knight can come here and drive the king to h8, so he can take here with check, and that will mate. But I was going to say the queen guards the square as well. So, yeah. Okay, so that game goes to blitzbullet. White has won both games, 1-all. Blitzbullet eekarf going down the same line again. That comes to b4, c4 comes on the board again. So let's see if there's a deviation in this line from how they played it last time. a3 kicking the knight away to a6. That knight can always, it looks weird on the rim, but it can always come into c5. Yeah, same line, I think. So white won this pretty handily last time. eekarf won this. So blitzbullet must think that he's found an improvement on the way he played last time. This is a nice move. If actually, yeah, he can actually. Well, I was gonna say he can take there, but the bishop takes with check. I was gonna say this is a nice move if black had another pawn in hand already, so they could place on d2 and trap the queen. But he doesn't, so I guess it's just going to be kind of a threat that's hanging in the air. If that doesn't actually manifest, though, this pawn could be ill-placed on c2, where it could be more useful in either defense or attack on the king side. So yeah, now that the bishop has moved, the queen has more squares. So I'm not sure if that was entirely precise. Okay, so mate is threatened on g7. That's what this knight at e8 on the back rank is all about. If you take that twice, I think that can be taken twice. Pawn drop here would drag the king out, but he decides that's enough of a threat that he doesn't want to take the twice there, I guess. The chat's debating about this early c4 push back on, what was it, move 9? Yeah, this is just to defend this d5 pawn. And e4, e5, they are right. I mean, you normally see a push to c3 to guard this square, but this is a little bit of a different variation that eekarf has ventured into, or prepared. Alright, so what's going on here? White's strong in the light squares, black is holding on in the dark squares. Black actually has some active pieces. Alright, the sack on h2, so the queen can't come here. With a check, looks just like a check to me, so takes on f2 instead. Yeah, that's good. That's strong, actually. That's really strong. It removes the defender of the g3 square, which will prove to be a very important pawn at g3, probably, or queen h4 first. Pawn at g3 first, okay. Now, if king takes, could consider sacking on on f2, but there are other options, of course. Pawn at h4. Yeah, you just why sack on f2 when you could just place there and then take that rook. So pawn at g4 will come. Oh, okay, he's just gonna take that. White could play pawn at g7, but I think black has enough coverage. Notice this queen dominates the f file, so you can't place more pawns on the f file to drag the king out. Pawn king up, or king takes, pawn at h6, king takes. What's the idea is bishop at e3, I think, picking up the queen. But he's still going to be, yeah, so after takes, yeah, I don't think you want to just drop the king back. I think you want to take that to get the material. Okay, you block the pawn. That's pretty deadly, as a matter of fact. Because you can't block now because there's a battery here with the queen and the bishop. And if you exchange queens, white has the tempo, and this is going to be all over. I was going to say knight at h3, covering this square as well, but this is probably stronger, cutting off the f6 escape route. And black resigns. Nicely done from eekarf there, with that little battery trick. And dragging the king out. Alright, eekarf, switching it up. 2-1 eekarf's favor. He did start with white. Let's see if he can break serve, so to speak, and if we're speaking tennis terms, and win with black here. Alright, so instead of he played d5 last time, this e4 d5 setup, and this time he's going for a little bit more conservative, small center structure. Because the e5 square free for that knight. This isn't bad at all. Taking here isn't a huge deal. Less experienced players might be a little bit worried about this spot on f7, just leaving that open if you recapture with a pawn, but the knight covers that. And even if that weren't the case, a pawn drop wouldn't be the end of the world. You could just take that and be happy with the extra material. or just replace that pawn eventually. So now, okay, this bishop at b3 move is just going to put long-term pressure on this diagonal, and that's going to be kind of motif of this game, I think, is this diagonal, and whether or not black can blunt that pressure. Pawn at h7, I'm putting another defender of the light squares. You don't want holes on all these light squares, so that's what h7 is all about. Okay, so a capture occurs on g4. Black's debating what he wants to which knight he wants to recapture with. Maybe this knight, so that you open up the rook to this square. No, he recaptures with e5 knight. Okay. I like this move, knight at f7. You don't want to take that, because that would lead to some pretty nasty consequences with this battery, the pawn and bishop battery, and also a rook drop. Though the knight does guard those important squares, so it wouldn't have been the end of the world, but still don't want to allow it. So the queen moves, pawn at d7. The queen's going to have to go to b8, looks like, which is an uncomfortable square, unless he wants to take there, but no, that's no good because it opens up this discovery. This would have been pretty nasty. Mug were speculating that Blitz wants to see how eekarf handles his own strategy against him, so maybe this is a setup that blitzbullet employs a lot. I don't know. I'm actually fairly new to watching eekarf's games. I know he's played a lot on Fix before. He's a very strong player on Fix. In both, or FICS, the free internet chess server, both in Buckhouse and Crazyhouse. But he's less active on Lichess, and so I haven't had a chance to watch him too much. He's only got, let's see, 194 Crazyhouse games. Whereas blitzbullet will have thousands, I'm sure. Yeah, 3,000, 3.1. Okay. That's not to say that blitzbullet is more experienced. I don't think he is. It's just to say that he's more active on Lichess. Okay, taking a break here, a little break from the commentary to see what's going on as I analyze this position. There are no knight drops here or here. Black's knights cover those squares, so that can be taken. White again is dominating these light squares, and black again is trying to stay solid on the dark squares. But this is an ugly piece. This is an ugly piece. This is an ugly piece. White just has so much more space, even given the fact that the material is still even, I think. Pawn drop here, and I was going to take. And now the queen comes in with check. Can he block with this? That's going to be a little bit nasty because white can take there with a knight and open up this square for a pawn drop. So he's going to block with this bishop, but that can just be taken, yeah. Now, ooh, yeah, there's a discovery. That's even better. Picking up a rook. And eekarf has 20 seconds remaining. So he's gonna be hard pressed to defend this with so little time on the clock. If rook takes, a bishop was going to come on to e6, so he takes with the king instead. That decision did let the queen come into the defense, but I don't think it's going to matter really. Takes, rook here instead. Okay, it's not going to matter. I think that must be taken. And again, notice this queen on g4. It guards these knight drops, as I was mentioning earlier. The queen's nicely placed. So yeah, black has nothing. White wins that game, 2-2. White has won every game so far. And remember, it's a 10-game series, so we're going to play 10 games even if it goes 5-5. That is a possible result. So we've still got 6 games one way or another. So it's been a well contested match so far. And we move into game 5 of this match, this first match of the candidate cycle. Alright, we're going for a different opening again. Good to see something different on the board. We've got a big center from eekarf, and we're going with a Pierce-like system, or modern-like system, fianchetto from blitzbullet. Of course, asking about white's advantage in Crazyhouse, and I don't think it's... White's advantage in Crazyhouse is not nearly as pronounced as it is, say, in Atomic, or 3-check, or other variants like that, where white has an overwhelming and possibly winning advantage as white from the get-go. I think Crazyhouse is much closer to actual chess in that respect, where sure white has a small advantage. I think it's fair, but nothing that's winning, nothing overwhelming. Black has plenty of resources to defend, which is what I think makes it such a viable variant for competitive play. I think Stockfish gives like maybe plus 0.6 or something along those lines straight out of the opening in Crazyhouse, which is playable for sure. Yeah, Fishy confirming that Crazyhouse is much better than 3-checks or Atomic, where white has a massive advantage. Okay, so black has pressure down the e-file. He's going to be scooping up some material. Pawn comes on his d7. Okay. You can actually consider taking on... You can either just move the rook or take here. So after takes, DE, queen takes. After FE, queen takes on E3, and black's looking very nice there. So I don't know that you even want to do that. You probably want to... Okay, just going to castle out of it. King's probably going to step to B2, unless there's something I'm missing. So he's going to... I mean, the only two options are to take there or to move to B2. He's going to take. Okay. So I guess he wasn't comfortable with just letting that bishop and pawn structure live there in his position. But I think the king would have been safe on b1 as well. He didn't really have to do that. King is a little bit more exposed on d2, so if it's open e-file, queen cutting him off, and black's got to watch out for a pawn drop on h7, followed by a rook drop on g8. But he might be... It's difficult to block off this diagonal. Pawn drop at f5 is possible with a knight on that. Can give up a pawn to get rid of this bishop, maybe. What else? I don't think white has any other threats besides his pawn drop on h7. So instead of a pawn drop on f5 to block off that diagonal, he blocks on e4. That's interesting. I think f5 might have been... but then that drops a knight, so that makes sense. So after a pawn drop on f... Okay, so the king sidesteps. He doesn't want to take that and allow a diagonal piece to appear on g6. That probably would have mated. So instead he has to sidestep and drop the queen for a rook. White now threatening mate on h7. Black blocks that off. Also defending this. He could have just taken that actually. Because queen takes knight. If knight takes knight, that would have been met with a queen drop on h7 mate. Black looking desperately now for a way to counterattack, but I don't think it exists. Yeah, his pieces are deployed a little bit too defensively here, I think. So rook at e7. That's a pretty good move, I think. We're getting control of the e-file. So h takes, I think, will be met by h6, right? This will be... Oh, no, of course not. I'll be met by mate on h7. Yeah, then I was just hanging. Mm-hmm. So at h7 to block that square off. If takes, can you take the queen? The queen just backs off. We're slowly approaching time pressure territory here with 30 to 21 seconds on the clock. eekarf just backs off of this queen, and black somehow, at the cost of a lot of material, the cost of a queen and a knight, has built a fortress around his king, and will it be enough with time dwindling? White has managed to break through in the light squares. Pawn at h7 is a nice move. King can't take that because it'll be drawn out with the bishop drop at g6, or not drop it, capture on g6. It's also menacing the rook capture promotion with check. Knight drop here is not possible. This covers that. He is in a pen down the h file. Just blocking that off, blocking off this diagonal. Bishop comes on, that can't be taken because the pawn drop will drag the king out. Just going to be a bunch of spite checks, guys, as the time comes down. 2 seconds to 5 seconds. eekarf on the attack, but down time. And blitzbullet manages to survive. Very nicely fought from blitzbullet. It looks like he was in a losing position for most of that game, but managed to take it into a time scramble where he won on the clock. And that's what happens in these 3+0 games. So if I'm not mistaken, that's the first game that black has won, right? And it's 3-2, I think. We're going down a bit of a different line again here. So king is drawn out early, but it's sequestered away on h8 now, and this bishop comes to f6 to this bishop comes out to f6, and the bishop appears on g7 to solidify the dark squares. So the fact that the king had to take on g7 wasn't a big deal. Yeah, I'm not sure about the last couple of moves, because now the dark squares are exploitable. Looks like blitzbullet is kind of slowly making his stamp here on this match. Queen drops back to h7, so it's going to be a defensive piece this game. It's blocked off by its own pawns. Yeah, this looks very good for white. Black is very cramped. All his pieces are defensive. His queen is blocked off, and white has pressure on both the dark squares and the light squares. He can't block that without dropping significant material. I want to say it's already over, because black has a lot of forces saying it's already over. That's what I'm responding to. I want to say it's already over because black has some material to defend with. But yes, I agree that white is looking dominating here. So the knight comes out just to give this rook some coverage on the back rank. Okay, so the knight takes on d5 because white wanted another diagonal piece to place on g7, which will mate. Queen must take that because no to block, or the bishop rather guards this g8 escape square. So pawn at g7 is a threat. The queen must take. So you're just gonna have to block that with a piece, which is not what you want to do. Queen takes that. Pawn reappears on f6. Yeah, I think this is going to be a little bit too much. A rook is going to appear on either f7 or g7, maybe a knight on f7 next. Or maybe he'll just take another pawn so he can place on g7. That's entirely possible as well, but then this will hang. So maybe not. So he's going to block that off with the knight and then maybe take. Or just drop a rook on h8 or g7. Equally viable. Same idea, right? So now queen at h8 is a threat because takes, promotes, that's going to mate. He just takes that pawn. Okay, so I was going to say white has no more diagonal pieces. But it does have a queen, which is in itself a diagonal piece. The place on f6. Bishop comes to f5, and if that's taken, that's going to mate as well. I think takes. King g8. Pawn drop here. King f8. You got to discover with the knight. Or queen here. King comes up now. I think that's going to mate anyway. That's too dangerous to take. So now maybe queen here. Both attacking g6 and defending the knight capture on g2. But now the knight's going to drop back to g5. So the queen can come in. Very nice. Okay. Exploiting this pen. So the pawn cannot take. The queen comes into the attack, although I'm not sure if that was really necessary. Either way, it would have won. Queen g4 is probably fine, and this knight sack to bring the queen in with check is mating as well. Okay, so another game to blitzbullet. He pulls ahead 4-2. And again, we're seeing a little bit of a different opening. Yeah, and just to reiterate, the candidates format is a little bit different from the knockout tournament, where it was a best of 10, so you had to win 6 games by 2 games to progress in the knockout tournament. But in the candidates, it's just best of 10, so a draw at 5-5 is possible, and just the most points scored at the end of the candidates tournament in terms of matches won will count towards the final 2 to go to the championship. Okay, so bishop at h6. He's allowing this knight drop. Black also allowing knight drop on f7, but you don't want to allow that because black has 2 pieces aimed at, or 2 knights aimed at f2, and that would pick up the queen. So you got to guard the f2 square, either directly with maybe like a queen e2, or indirectly by possibly taking on h3. But so what was the threat there if he takes on h3? Taking on f2 and placing a pawn at, replacing a pawn at g2? I don't think that's it. Maybe just taking on h6, getting rid of that bishop now. So I do like how black has played this. I think he's managed to at least achieve equality. I mean, he's pressing now. So yes, at the very least, he's achieved equality. He's got this nice open G file, which is always going to be a threat. There's a rook placed on it. His king is, I would contend, even a little bit safer than white's. I know you have this bishop peering into your guts here, but a knight here isn't really going to do all too much at the present. White's pieces are a little bit gummed up. This bishop doesn't have any terribly promising squares, although I would say a3 is probably its best square. Black would love another knight to place on f2 right now, because if a king steps there, then a rook would appear on h1 mate, so that must be taken. That would probably lead to mate with the queen in hand, but there's no way for black to get another knight in hand because they're all in white's hand. So pawn appears on f2, threatening mate. Rook at g1 mate, also threatening in some positions, promoting if black can get rid of this bishop. So the bishop does eventually find its way to a3. It also opens up the rook's defense of the first rank, which is crucial when white has black has a pawn on the second rank and a rook in hand. So black gets another pawn in hand. Where does he want to place that pawn? Alright, so the king, I would say the king can just run over to the queen side. I don't think you want to take that with your rook. Either pawn at c6 or the king's just going to step back. Or even c6, I guess, is possible here. But yeah, now you probably don't want to do that because then you get a little bit weaker on the dark squares. So yeah, just steps back. Notice white doesn't have another pawn in hand to place on one of these squares just yet. And after white captures on this square, maybe f3 is possible with the idea if you capture, you can place a pawn on g2. The king takes, and you move the knight away with the discovery. But this is going to mate anyway. Queen comes down. Pawn at f2 is threatened. That must be taken with the queen. Otherwise, a rook will appear on g1 with mate. And this is going to mate anyway. Very nicely done. There's a pen here. Knight checks the king. King sidesteps queen at g1 mate. So blitzbullet pulls ahead 5-2. So far, putting on a very convincingly dominating performance over eekarf. He was maybe a little bit out of practice. Who knows? But blitzbullet playing very well. Blitzbullet also managing to upset Opperwiesen, International Master Opperwiesen, in the round of 16, progressing the candidates. Now he's backing that performance up. He's proving he belongs here. Strong play so far from blitzbullet. And all right, we go into a bishop e7 line here, and white sacks on f7. Black's going to be defending for most of the game here, but he's going to be up a material. So see how long he can. I was going to say, so see how long it takes before he can kind of swing the tide and use that material to solidify his king's position. So, okay, black's giving back the material to achieve some safety. The knight's going to drop on f6, but bishop takes f6, and black's perfectly safe. Knight appears on f5 instead, the immediate capture on f6. And that's taken. So now f6 is taken as well. Knight appears on f7, forking the queen and the rook. It's not a huge deal. I think you just move the queen, and then after knight capture on h8, you probably recapture with the king. No, first you interpose with at d2 to draw the king out and sacrifice a pawn just to make sure the king cannot castle to safety, so that once you solidify your king as black, then you have options to attack white's king. But somehow I was thinking that blitzbullet was playing black here. No, blitzbullet is white. Okay. I think black's fine here. This bishop makes a poor impression because it has no future whatsoever, and it's also blocking the AH rook, the A8 rook's communication with the back rank. But otherwise, black is fine, I think. Queen's gonna have to draw back to f8, I think, here, but then the okay, no, I stand corrected. You can capture here first. So what's white's threat if you just take there and then move the queen away? You don't want this to drop. I think that's the point. So yeah, I think that was the point of dropping the bishop on b4, because it defends this pawn with check, so you can move the queen away. But yeah, if you just challenge that bishop, then you're gonna have to resolve that tension, and this is still gonna be a problem point. So I think you have to take that first if you don't want your bishop to hang and queen to hang. So takes probably with it just c pawn, or the b pawn rather, is okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay, that's a creative solution. If takes, you're going to take here with check, and if takes, you're going to take back with the bishop. But that does drop the queen. So when I say creative solution, I'm not convinced it actually works, because that's a lot of material. White deciding how he wants to recapture this. He does recapture with the b pawn, which when you recapture like that, you have to be a little bit wary of the knight appearing on c4, because the king can no longer retreat to the queen side safely when you remove this pawn, and the knight appears on this square, because there's this square is now open to drop a piece or a pawn. but white seems content enough to hang out in the center here. And just wait until he has the tempo so he can use his queen. This knight cannot be taken, otherwise the queen is going to appear on g6. I'm going to go ahead and claim that white's going to win this game. Pretty confident in that judgment. There aren't even any checks that black can place here. White has everything covered nicely, and it was up over a minute on the clock, so nicely done. 6-2 to blitzbullet. Pulling away here in the latter stages of this match, this first candidates match. Going back into the Pierts, this time eekarf goes with an early h4 push, trying to open up the h file. Uses lever on g6. Possibly castle queenside in this game. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. Can't recapture here because that's probably going to lead to mate with a bishop appearing on f7 or pawn. Pawn at d2, dragging the king out. Knight at c4 is possible, but the king could even just step up there actually. King e2 is probably the best square. I think eekarf's going to manage to win this one. There's a lot of pressure on the f7 square. Maybe black can consider trying to run the king like that. Here takes king back. There's even stuff like at a6 in that position with the queen nicely positioned along that diagonal. So you can't run the king like that. Otherwise, you're just going to have to defend that square like a dog, really. So bishop at f6 is just blocking off the queen from f7. You can still sack there, and I think black's a little bit too weak on the light squares. Bishop at d5 would pick off this knight. Okay, so pawn at e6. And if that's taken, probably bishop at f5 to block the king off from this diagonal. So king just steps back. Knight at g6 is possible. Knight at f7 is possible. So pawn here. Notice I can't be taken with the bishop because of the pin. Therefore, the king must take, and the knight comes on, and that's going to lead to mate with some pawns being placed on the 7th rank. Okay, so eekarf manages to win that game 6-3 in favor of blitzbullet still. I'm just writing this in the chat so I can keep track of it myself. I like this. We're getting somewhat different positions at most games. I think we've seen this maybe 2 games ago, or several games ago anyway. But yeah, it does seem to me like this is being played a little bit differently, deviated, because the bishop has not appeared on f6. Black's improving a little bit. So now both g2 and g7 are gone. Play is proceeding at rapid fire here, trying to figure out what's going on. Alright, bishop appears on g7, so we always have to watch out for the contingency that white should get a rook in hand, in which case it would be mate on h8. Queen steps up to g2. Supposing they can't be just immediately knocked away with, say, like a knight drop on h4 or a pawn drop. I was going to say, supposing that's not the case, it would be nicely positioned, because after bishop takes, bishop here, and the queen would be on the king, but queen stepping up to g2 does come with the drawback that it's going to be susceptible to a lot of tempo loss, essentially, with black dropping stuff on the king side and attacking the white queen with tempo, getting all his pieces on the board. This is still hanging, so I think if a knight Yeah, if you try to attack the queen with like this knight drop on h4, maybe white was just going to take here. Get 2 pieces for the queen. But anyway, okay, so this is dangerous. Yeah, white takes here instead of recapturing on h6 because diagonal piece at g2 was going to lead to some nasty consequences. Black has managed to get rid of these 2 thorns in his side here. King's going to have to sidestep that because it's penned. White's going to sack, but I like black here. That's going to win the queen for a rook anyway. Yeah, if queen takes, then you drop a bishop here first, and the king takes. A knight takes, that's going to lead to mate, I think. If you had a pawn here, that'd be nice, because then you could promote next move, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's going to be enough to mate. Queen drop here. Queen steps up. It's all the same, really. Queen drop here, I think. Bishop drop instead, okay. Black's probably considering taking this. This is the only problem piece for black because it defends the squares you want to drop the queen on. So maybe you could even take here and then knight e4, which would remove both this defender and this defender. So what I'm proposing is queen takes. Let's say queen takes, pawn takes, knight e4. Okay, so that does occur. Knight e4. And the knight can't take because then you drop piece here. So, okay, this is going to work as well. Rook drops here, draws the knight away. Now you can drop this queen on the square that the knight has been drawn away from, and you got a little roller mate or whatever it's called here. This mating format from eekarf. Okay, so eekarf fighting back here in this match, 4-6. Nice finish there from eekarf. Bit of a seesaw match so far. Momentum seems decidedly in eekarf's favor now with the past 2 game wins going to him. Both players. Oh, that's game. yeah, I've lost count of the games here. It's 6-4. I was just expecting to keep going on here, but no, that's 10 games. So blitzbullet does come away with a match win, the first match win of the candidates. Very nicely played from blitzbullet, and nicely contested from eekarf as well. But I do suppose it was already decided once. The match result was decided anyway once it got to 6-4, so or 6 games. Okay, so I was just taking stock there of what was happening, reading the chat and everything. But I think I'm gonna cut the recording off here. Hopefully my commentary was illuminating, or if not illuminating, passable, serviceable anyway. This was kind of a last minute thing for me. I wasn't expecting to be able to cover this match, but I'm glad I was. Hoping to cover as many of these candidate matches as possible and kind of preserve these candidate matches for posterity, because I think it's a pretty prestigious event and it's going to produce some very exciting high-level Crazyhouse. So okay, I'm going to cut it off here and I'll catch you later. Thanks, guys.